Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Southern Cross University's Open Day for 2023. Thank you for joining us here for our panel for the Bachelor of Laws. My name is Gurpreet Singh. I'm currently a student ambassador here at Southern Cross University, and I will also be hosting this panel session. So today's panel is really designed to share insights about studying at Southern Cross University, and particularly our law degree. This will be a 25-minute panel ending with 5 to 10 minutes to answer questions. We really strongly encourage everyone, if you do have a question, feel free. Don't be scared to ask a question right at the end. We're here to help. Any question's better for us. We want to give you guys as much information we can today to help you decide and maybe even apply today for the degree. So today I'm very fortunate to be on a panel with some amazing panelists. So we have a current student, Amy Mazrella. We have faculty members Jonathan Harlan and David Halpern, and Fair Work Commission representative and Southern Cross University alumni, Isaac Hawkins. So hi everyone. What I'm going to get everyone to just quickly do is just give a little bit of an introduction of what you currently do and your connection with Southern Cross University. I might start with
Yes, hi everyone. I'm currently in my third and final year of my LLB at SCU. I study on campus at the Gold Coast, and I'll be looking to commence my honours study next year. Yeah.
Thanks. And Amy is also president of the University Student Society as well. So I'm Jonathan Harlan, so I'm a faculty or a discipline member, a lecturer and a unit assessor. My background out of practice was in the area really of civil law, particular focus on negligence law, but now as an academic I'm teaching an array of subjects, but that's me.
Hi, my name's David Halpern. I was one of the founders of the law school back in the early 1990s, and then I left after 10 years to be a magistrate for 22 years. Recently, I returned to head up the law school, so I'm the Dean of Law, and I've been doing that now for exactly 1 year.
So I'm Isaac Hawkins. I recently finished a double degree doing law and business in August of this year. I began back in 2019, and I also did some other duties like being a student ambassador and partnerships assistant. Currently, I'm doing my PLT study, which is essentially further accreditation beyond your law degree to be able to be a practicing solicitor. And I'm also working for myself as an industrial advocate at the Fair Work Commission.
Awesome, thank you everyone. I think it's really encouraging and awesome to have those insights that all our panelists have some amazing experience in the field, either still studying or currently graduated or worked for a long time within the field. And just the connection that Southern Cross University has in some part of their career at the moment. So I guess we'll start off with one of our faculty members, or either you can jump in at the same, just add in some comments. A little bit about the law degree. What does it involve at Southern Cross University?
Sure. Well, our law degree is a 3-year law degree. There are other options to go on to do honours, masters and the like. So many law degrees are 4-year. We used to be, but now we are a 3-year law degree. The idea is that gets you out into the workplace sooner. We also have a range of different entries into our law degree. So, and we have degrees that we consider to be just as important, an associate degree in law and a Bachelor of Legal and Justice Studies. Those have much lower entry ATAR levels, but they do provide a pathway into the law degree if that's your choice. And many of our most high-profile graduates and alumni have come through that path. So fear not if you don't quite get into the LLB, the full law degree straight away. There are other pathways and entries. The other thing that we pride ourselves on is almost all of our academics, in fact, I think all of our academics have practiced or do practice law. We pride ourselves on creating graduates that are good legal practitioners who can leave and go straight into practice. Our emphasis is very much on getting you into court, getting you real life experience, placements, and the like, so that you're in touch with real law right from the word go. Jonathan, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Perhaps the model that we study under is quite new and different. So that is, we look at units by 6-week modules. So instead of doing 4 units over a semester or a session that might be 12 or 13 or 14 weeks or whatever, we do smaller packets of time, and they're called modules, and within that you do the units. So you study only 2 subjects at a time, as opposed to 4. So it's an immersion or a little bit of a deeper focus on 2 subjects at once, which in the feedback we've got, the students really like that. They don't have to spread themselves quite so thin. You get turnover in the units quicker, so you finish your units more quickly, but you're still studying to the same depth. It's just more focused 2 subjects rather than 3 or 4 at once. So that's perhaps another thing that's unique about the law degree.
Thank you for that. I think you really touched on, within that introduction about the law degree that we do offer. Southern Cross University they really strive ourselves for connecting with the community and connecting with students, making sure we care for our students. With our law degree being in 3 years, with the new Southern Cross model, this is going to be a question for our student member here, is how are you finding the whole study-life balance? With our caring nature of our university, how do you find studying at Southern Cross?
I guess coming into university, obviously there's a lot of study involved, particularly in a law degree, which you would expect. It has been a transition into our 6 weeks model, which is interesting, having commenced under the normal 13 weeks. I guess it's important to maintain the study, work and social life balance. I would definitely say that. But yeah, I guess just like focusing on maintaining good study habits, and also maintaining your life outside of study, just to, keep your well-being just generally. And Southern Cross is really helpful with that. We also, we're currently in the process, Jonathan and myself, in the Law Student Society. So we're looking to build more student engagement, just keep working on that.
And what made you want to study law?
I commenced my studies straight out of high school. So I finished year 12 in 2020 and started my LLB in 2021. I think I've always had an interest in law. I guess it's kind of funny, I guess I always like the hard and fast rules and being right or wrong, but since I've actually started my degree, it's very much not like that. There's a lot of grey area and it's actually quite different, but I just love learning new things and being able to apply it to real life, and I guess also seeing the other side more of being able to help people. Like as a lawyer, I sort of see their role as being a support role when people really, really need it, I guess. So, yeah.
Awesome. So Isaac, you've recently graduated here at Southern Cross University. How did you find the transition from, studying it as a student and now working in practice?
Yeah, I found it pretty much very similar to what I was doing as a student and to what I'm doing now. And I think that can be accredited mainly to that 6x6 model. I mean, I was still working full-time whilst doing a 6x6 model. Now I'm working full-time and I'm still doing a little bit of further study, but in terms of my balance, being my work-to-life balance, it hasn't really changed that much. I would say that in terms of the assessment pieces that I was doing as a law student, whether that be writing a statement of claim or a file note or the real practical type of assessments that you're doing in each of the units, I found it to be very applicable to what I'm doing now working at the Fair Work Commission. So I would say the transition's been very easy. It's been very beneficial, and I probably wouldn't have changed my study approach or suggested any changes for the taught content because the ease has been so perfect.
Thanks, Isaac. And, myself with, with now a lot of people watching streaming services like Netflix, there's been a lot of glamorization with lawyers, and that's, it interests a lot of my friends to actually study law. But on a serious note on that is that that what a lawyer all does? Is there what other types of jobs may a lawyer do after graduating, or what types of law can they practice? Open to anyone on the panel here.
Sure. We have a large range of alumni, people who've completed our law degree. We've got 6 members of parliament, would you believe? And we have 3 judges, 7 magistrates around Australia. So we don't have that many people go straight from Southern Cross University Law School into the big firms, like into the major city firms that you've probably seen on some of the TV dramatisations. We have a large number who go to places like Legal Aid, Aboriginal Legal Service, private firms, but they tend to be the smaller private firms rather than larger. And that's not by accident. We were the first non-metropolitan law school in Australia at Southern Cross. So we started off saying, well, we want to provide somewhere for people who come from rural and regional places to be able to do law and to go back into their communities as part of law. So there is a drift. I think 35% of our graduates go to cities, capital cities, and so that would make us the largest law school in Australia where people don't go straight into the cities. They go to rural and regional areas. And in that, of course, I include the Gold Coast, Northern Rivers of New South Wales and the like. I suppose because it's online, also we have a large number of students who live all over the place and do a wide range of things and want to further their existing careers. We have school teachers who want to be legal studies teachers. We have people who work in government departments who want to be legal officers. We have people who start off in industrial relations and then want to go that step further and become industrial relations advocates in court. So I think, someone said to me recently, law degrees are the new arts degrees. And I think that that's right. If you want a generalised degree that you can get into any area you want to get into, apart from straight legal practice, well, law is a great place to start.
Awesome.
Add one thing. I just saw a statistic recently that slightly more than 60% of law graduates end up working in private practice. Beyond that, you have a corporate legal sector, you have a government legal sector, you also have a charitable legal sector and what you might call public interest advocacy. So it's certainly a significant number, 60%, but you might have expected it to be 70 or 80 or 90. There's an awful lot of people with law degrees out there working in all kinds of different fields and parts of the economy and parts of society.
Thank you for that. And I guess with the degree itself, there may be opportunities to select different types of electives. What types of electives does the law degree offer? And can you give some more insight into those, please?
Sure. I'll give a few. We have the electives that I have taught directly into include mooting, which is a legal debating program, which we invite visiting judges and magistrates in to judge them. So that's an example. We also have a full moot court set up in our Northern Rivers campus at Lismore, which is fully set up just like a small courtroom would be. I teach a unit called Drugs, Crime and the Law, which is a very popular unit with students, teaching you about drugs, drug law, drug crime. What other electives do we have that you teach into? International law you teach, Jonathan?
No, not specifically, but it is there, human rights law and international law. I think that's Yvette
Yep.
does those. But I teach intellectual property as an elective, which I just find it an utterly fascinating area of law. I only practiced in it a bit, but it's just a fascinating area. And succession law, wills and estates. There's, animal rights law, I think, environment law. There are a wide range. Amy, can you pluck any more out of the hat?
Let me have a think. I've done intellectual property and succession law with Jonathan. I've also done human rights. I'm be doing mooting in term 4 of this year as well. I'm currently doing welfare law. There's a lot of electives available, and they tend to be mainly delivered online. And also the assessments are a little bit different with the electives, that a lot of them don't have the formal exam assessment type. A lot of them are assignments, report writing, essays and things like that, which can be beneficial. So yeah.
Sounds like there's quite a number there that are very interesting, actually. I think I want to study law now after listening to some of them. I guess for both, Amy and Isaac as an alumni now of this Southern Cross University, in terms of student support, you have a lot of assessment. You may have a lot of assessments in law. What types of avenues does the university provide to help students succeed in their degrees? Start with Isaac.
Yeah, sure. So on our learning site, I lived on our learning site, and there's a number of resources specifically on that learning site that I just tapped into all throughout, whether it be referencing guides, whether it be sort of templates on how to do essays, how to do reports, how to firm up an email or something like that. I lived on that learning page, and I always, when I was working as a student ambassador, I used to tell prospective students that these aren't just like fanciful type of, there's so much support out there. These are support access points that you can directly tap into, and it's literally a matter of, it might be 2 or 3 clicks on your learning site and away you go.
I guess for me, I would say the most important thing is to talk to people, like even your unit assessors, your lecturers, your tutors, they all try to make themselves very available and accessible to you as much as they possibly can. I've worked quite closely with David in relation to the honours degree, so we've been in contact a lot about that. I've also been working closely with Jonathan in relation to the Law Society. They try to make themselves very available, and it really is up to you to make contact with them and ask questions and ask for help, and they really try to help as much as they can.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how easy it is to contact your academics, but you've answered that already for me. And I think it's really important for everyone to know here, Southern Cross University really strives themselves. We don't say we like to, students are a number. We actually want to know them as personalised as their name. And I think that's really important going through our, new transferring tomorrow. Having that support at university makes a big difference to make sure you get through your assessments. And having those connections, like we mentioned before, a lot of our law academics have worked in practice. They're the ones that know where jobs are, have those connections, and I think that's really important to have. And I think we're very fortunate at Southern Cross University to be doing really well in those avenues. So that's really good to hear. In terms of other student supports, are there some sort of like societies? I know Amy does a little bit in that area for students to know about. Could you give us a bit more insight about what you do there?
I am the president of the SCU Law Student Society, which we have just sort of commenced as of June, July this year. It took a bit of a hiatus with COVID, but we are getting it back up and running. So I guess that's a student support system, which all students as part of the discipline of law are members of the society. We're hoping to run some online panels just to be there as sort of to facilitate some more engagement. I guess as a result of COVID, we did sort of struggle with that student engagement a bit. It was really difficult, obviously. So we're just trying to build that back up, being able to communicate, some networking with other students, with faculty members, with people in the workforce. And just opening opportunities and networking, I think, is really important. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Amy. I think just going back to in terms of the course structure, and some people in the audience may not actually be aware of how it works here at Southern Cross University. But if you were to study part-time, how would that look in terms of study unit selection? How many units will you be doing per term?
So because our terms are now 6 weeks, what that means is, and a full-time load is 2 units. Part-time or half-time looks like doing 1 at a time, or as some of our students do 2 and then take a term off, or do 2 and then do 1 and then do 2 again, etc. So there's a lot of flexibility. You can really make your own pathway through. What I tend to find is a lot of people say they want to do it part-time at the start, and that's good, and they build up. Because law is, I think, I was listening to IT before, and, I was thinking, that's really not that exciting. And law is, what we find is that our students are really interested in what they're studying. It is inherently interesting. And I find a lot of students say, I'm going to start part-time, and within 2 weeks they're going, I think I can pick up another unit. Because it is inherently interesting. My idea of a great Saturday night is to read the latest cases that have come out. So, look, it's an inherently interesting subject, law, and I don't think anyone gets bored. Do you agree?
Yeah, completely, 100%. And I mean, I'm even finding myself now with listening to different cases or doing some further research. There's just so much law out there, and you read a new article and you go, oh, I haven't thought of the law that way. I'll even add just to those terms. My sister recently went overseas and competed overseas, and she's studying here, doing a Bachelor of Psychological Science. And she found that, okay, she couldn't do that workload with her sporting commitments. She dropped the 6 weeks. She's had those 6 weeks off. But what she'll do is she'll just pick up those units over the holiday break and back to square one with all the students, and didn't essentially have any negative impacts from her sporting commitments.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. Like, so the passion that academics have, and still ex-students have in law is amazing. I think that gives a lot of credit to what the law degree here, is actually established here at Southern Cross University. So just to finish off with the panel, I'm going to thank all the panelists for their amazing insight into the law degree, and we're going to open up the floor to any questions out in the audience. So feel free to just raise your hand. Yep, right at the front.
That's an excellent question. I'll just repeat it so people could hear. Basically, it was a question about assessments and how do we assess students, and do you have to come into campus? Can you do it completely online? Are there any ground rules? We have an incredible array of different assessments, but under the Southern Cross model that we're transitioning into, and will be more, there is less emphasis on exams than ever before. We have some exams left in some subjects, but for example, at the moment I'm teaching a criminal law subject that has for the last 30 years had an exam until this year. And we're moving away from an exam in that to some, you've got to make a bail application and you've got to do a sentencing exercise in person rather than an exam. We think much less painful. Those subjects that there still are exams are able to be done completely online without having to come to any exam centre. It's a process called proctoring, and we have software for it. So does that answer your question? But we have assignments, essays, moots, seminars, class participation, or array of different assessment items in different subjects, but you can study any of our subjects online, and many of them, certainly a bit more than half, in person as well. Well, no, we have run mooting completely online before. During COVID, it continued, and we continued it on. Of course, we encourage people to get together and do that, but this year will be the last year we do it totally online. But if there's 2 teams and there's 6 people from Perth to Hobart, then we'll continue to do it online. And they get an enormous amount out of it. Zoom is fantastic.
I'll just add quickly to that. So I think I'm not alone in this, but my assessments are very strongly focused on legal problem questions and real life legal problem questions. So I teach a civil litigation course, for example. One of the assessments is to draft and prepare a statement of claim based on a set of facts given. That also has an essay as its final assessment. Typically there are 2 assessments, so a midterm and an end. And in that unit, as an elective, there's an assignment, which is intellectual property. There's an assignment and then an essay, which is done over 3 days over a weekend, typically. So that's slightly different from the mooting one, horses for courses, but you'll find that the assignments are very much real-world based.
And we have no closed book exams. They're all open book to some extent because, let's face it, wherever you're practicing or doing law or doing anything to do with law, you've got access to computers or books. So we take the philosophy that we don't do closed book exams.
Thank you again. Thank you, our panelists, and we hope to see you on campus soon.